This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. First thing on the meeting is always the approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any questions, comments, any changes or additions to the existing agenda? If not, I guess I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Okay, identify yourself. Rick, Rick had the motion.
And I second it.
Maggie.
Maggie seconded. Okay, so I got a motion by Rick to approve the agenda, second by Maggie Bass. So Maggie, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Sean?
Aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
And Chuck? Aye. Motion passes 5-0. So the first thing on the agenda is the introduction of ordinance number 311. Ken, I assume you're going to lead this on that one?
Yep, I'll go through a PowerPoint kind of like normal here. Bear with me. Hopefully everybody can see the screen here. All right, so this is an item that we had actually brought up for introduction at a couple of meetings ago at the council, but I'm going to kind of run through the background for everybody again, just so we can go over everything. So at the January 22nd, 2020 Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission had discussion on potential RH zoning ordinance amendment for densities in that zoning district. That's our high density residential district. And it was specific related to the Deutschland First Edition plat we had on the review at that point. Let's go on here, it's clicking through. Bear with me, it's not advancing the slide here. Staff ultimately researched cities in the area during the month of February and recommended increases to the density, as well as building aesthetic requirements for buildings with 5 or more units. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on the proposed amendments on February 26th and recommended the council consider those amendments for approval. At the March 16th meeting, our last meeting, the council reviewed the background and the proposed language at that time. There were a number of questions raised about limiting the number of efficiency units in the RH district or any multiple family district, requiring a ratio of certain unit types, fire suppression question and fire code questions, and then the subjectivity of staff reviewing building design requirements. I spoke to city attorney about the question on the efficiency unit specifically, and he noted that based on Federal Fair Housing Act and other lawsuits that could come from a limitation on certain housing unit types or putting a limitation on efficiency units, he recommended not to put those restrictions in place, and further noted that none of the cities in the area have such restrictions, and Scott couldn't even think of any that do, just because of the fair housing issues that would come up with that. Regarding the building code and fire suppression, all apartment buildings are required to have fire suppression in the buildings. One thing related to the question that Rick brought up is regarding elevators and stairways. The building code does require a refuge area on each floor so that the fire department or any rescue can occur as long as the occupants go to the refuge area on that floor. And as we talked with the building height and everything, that we didn't want to go over 50 feet, and our ladder truck can get access to every floor as long as we're at 50 feet or below. So that refuge area will continue to function as it would be planned to do per the code. Regarding building design requirement regulations being approved by staff, took a look at area cities and what they do, and it is staff that interprets these codes in all the area cities, other than when conditional use permits are required or when planning developments are required. And obviously is an item that would go to the Planning Commission and then ultimately the council for final review and have input and take public comment as well throughout those review periods. So really not anything different there that we're proposing. So just to kind of summarize everything again, looking at an increase of the density in the RH district, high density residential, from 22 units an acre up to 32 units per acre, decreasing the square foot per lot requirements of 2,000 square feet down to 1,300, decreasing the open space per unit from 400 to 300, and then finally adding the section of building design requirements for buildings with 5 or more units, which are similar in scope and actually very close in language to the B2 design guidelines that we have in place. So again, the code amendments are actually pretty simple. I've highlighted them in yellow on the overhead for you. You see the number of units being changed there. The bulk standards for minimum lot area and minimum open space also being changed. And then the new section on the building design requirements for multifamily residential buildings with 5 or more units. So again, very similar language to what we have in the B2 community commercial zoning district for appearance. And again, that worked well, the similar language for Prague Village and that construction that occurred, or the review that occurred before that building was constructed. So ultimately, staff and the Planning Commission recommend introducing this ordinance in tonight and to hold the first reading. We're not recommending any changes, even based on the questions that came up from the council on the March 16th meeting. That's all I have for the staff report.
I have some questions.
This
Sure.
is Chuck. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Ken regarding this first reading of the ordinance change?
Yeah, Chuck, this is Sean. I have some. Can I
Okay.
go ahead? Okay. Ken, where did this come out of? Was this a concern of Marv's on this particular project or his particular piece of land, or where did this originate from?
Yeah, so initially it originated out of Marv bringing that up when we were reviewing the plat. He actually specifically didn't have a huge issue with it because he could get very close to the number of units that he was envisioning in his mind that he would like to have on that building. And it just sparked the question from the Planning Commission as, are we in line with what other cities require or would allow for the RH district? Upon the research of various cities, a lot of cities allow even more units than what they list in their ordinances. Through the planning and development process, we specifically in our planning and development ordinance do not allow an increase in densities. So in looking at that and then looking at what other cities are at, we found that we were a little on the low end as far as what we would allow. And actually, based on our densities, even that we did have, based on the minimum lot area and the minimum open space area, that you actually couldn't reach the densities that we even had in place. So this is trying to get that a little more in line with what realistically could happen. Now, again, there's still parking requirements that come into play and other design elements that we have that make it so you can't just jam as much as you can on a lot, but it would allow a better use of the land and provide for the densities that could support a project that we think would work well here in New Prague. Not necessarily work for other cities, but would work well for New Prague.
Well, I'm just kind of curious why. You're right. We were one of the lowest ones, at second lowest, tied with Belle Plaine and just a couple units ahead of Savage. But now we're going to be the second highest that we're allowing. And I was just wondering if there shouldn't be some middle ground there, like maybe it's instead of 33 units, it's or 32 units, it's 26 or 28. We're still going up from 22, and but what it'll prevent is, I'm guessing, the reason that it was as tight as it was is they wanted to kind of have some type of control over the style and the type of apartments, if the apartments were even going to go into New Prague. Any questions on that, or do you know why it was originally set at that level?
My understanding is that number goes back a number of years when there was a general distaste for apartment buildings in New Prague. And for that reason, we really haven't had a true apartment building constructed really since the mid 1990s. And I think this has a lot to do with that. Not to say there hasn't been a demand or need for it. And when we've had higher units constructed, it's only at this point been through a conditional use permit for Phillips Square, which is obviously in our B1 downtown district, and then the Praha Village as well, obviously in the RH district here, but that allowed the density to go higher than the 32 units an acre. But again, that was because assisted living facilities are allowed to go over that normal threshold.
I'm all for the assisted living projects and stuff where we actually had a designated need. However, I do believe that there's still a huge percentage of the population that still want to keep New Prague from becoming Shakopee with multiple apartment complexes and whatnot as it grows, and keeps the charm and the old world feel, small town feel that New Prague does. So I'm just wondering if I like the idea of this ordinance with the construction design elements and whatnot, that we get some control out of it. I'm still a little concerned with the changing of, we kind of opened it up for the building design requirements because we didn't have any, which I think is important to have. But all of a sudden then we started reviewing everything, and now all of a sudden we're going to the second highest density unit. And I'm just wondering if, my feeling is that previous councils did that to make sure that if an apartment complex was coming in, that it was going to be of a certain style and a certain look to it, and in a certain area. And that's maybe why it was so tight.
Yeah, it was meant to restrict. I don't have any reason to believe that it was anything but that. I do think it would be good to open it up to this. I don't think it's anything, just my professional opinion, I don't think it's anything extreme by any means. Most other cities, Shakopee, Prior Lake for that matter, when you see those very large apartment buildings that are housing a number of units, those are plan unit developments where they're varying from that normal standard anyway. And again, we do not do that. We specifically say we do not allow density increase in a plan unit development. So we do continue to have that restriction. And just for example, on Marv's property, he would be looking to put about 36 units on his property, I believe is what it was. And this code amendment would allow that. Without that, I'm just trying to run a number real quick here. He was limited to 26 units. So it allows about 10 more units on that 1.2 acre property, just as an example for you. So an additional floor over what he could have had on that property.
And if you think about it, is 3 stories high. That's per floor.
We're getting a bad echo here.
Yeah, I broke up. I didn't hear anything.
Can you hear better?
Yeah, but you're echoing. Let's let Maggie finish.
Or go ahead, Maggie.
Can you hear me? Okay. So if an apartment building is 3 stories, if that's only 10 apartments. I'll call in on my phone.
I don't know that.
Feedback. Well, Maggie's calling in. Ken, I have one more question. Is Marv looking at doing something pretty soon?
I don't know at this point if he is or not. He had indicated he would like to move forward with plans this year, he believed, but with everything that's going on, I couldn't tell you at this point. I haven't talked to him for about a month.
Unmuted.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'll make a comment. I just whether you have, two or what the difference that'll make. I mean, the ordinance that you're proposing, Ken, I mean, it looks good. So I don't know, Sean. I'd like to agree with you, but I guess as long as the plan keeps the outdoor decoration, to the same tone as the surrounding buildings, I don't see why we shouldn't go ahead and put as many units in there as possible. I guess I agree with you, Ken, on this one.
Okay, I'm back.
Much better.
Good. So I don't know if you could understand what I said earlier, but if we're looking at an apartment building of 3 stories, that's only 10 apartments per story, which really isn't that high density.
Right, it's really not.
Right, and it's not Marbs that I'm worried about. It's giving us the ability for the next one and the next one that might be a totally different situation, and we're just lowering the standards that were put in place as far as I'm concerned. I like the fact that we wanted to open this ordinance up and take a look at the design elements and putting that meat into the ordinance. I'd like to, my feeling is I'm going to vote against it at 33 or 32, excuse me, because that's going to put us the second highest in Scott County.
What was the planning commission thought process about choosing that number?
I missed that meeting, Maggie, and that's my fault. So I was not part of it, or else I would have mentioned it to them. And given them this type of speech, whether or not that would have changed their votes, I'm not sure. It would have been a discussion that would have come up that really wasn't. I don't think anybody really brought any discussion to it. I read the minutes. But I was not there. So.
Yeah, I got to interject real quick. Mike, muting your microphone because you're causing echo.
Because why?
You're causing the echo.
My microphone is? My microphone is?
Mike's is. Oh. There we go. Sorry, I kind of missed all that.
Yeah, okay, this is Mike. That one of the things you need to consider, obviously, in the construction of this type of housing, is that the financial abilities of the developer to be able to spread the cost under the current construction costs these days to have enough units to make it worthwhile to undertake the project in the first place. And I think that's the challenge that Marv has been wrestling with, looking at density and cost of construction to be able to build it. And as Ken said, we haven't had anything built here since probably the mid 1990s, and where he's got the standards that he's adding that are similar to the other district. You know, you've got some control and review, and I think that when you look at what staff did to work with Praha Village, we end up with a pretty nice facility in the end.
No doubt. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to prevent senior assisted living either. The fact is, and I'm not even opposed to Marv's particular building. I just think that what we currently have now was thought out by other councils to maintain a certain style of the city of New Prague, which didn't include large apartment buildings. I think that's where, they made this restrictive. And now we're going from one of the most restrictive in Scott County to one of the least restrictive. And again, I don't know what that future holds for us. It might not mean anything, or it could mean a flood of developers coming in to put even more housing in, or more apartment complexes, changing the whole entire feel of that district, or our Main Street district. I mean, for an example, this council moved, well, maybe Rick and Maggie weren't here, but Rick and Bruce, but the previous council, we bought land right by that park, or by Memorial Park behind that multi-family house. So nobody could buy it and develop apartments right there. And that was right on Main Street as well. So, I mean, now we're kind of going against this whole thing, and we're loosening our standards to an extent that it's not Marv's thing. I'm all for that. I'm just saying what's coming down the future. We're giving away, my feeling is giving away some of the control. And why can some of another question, Ken, why can some of them do it with the PUD, but we can't?
Because those cities have specifically written their ordinances to allow it to be done that way.
Okay, so why shouldn't we be looking at changing that PUD or that ordinance as opposed and allowing that, so we could at least councils and future planning commissions have the ability to, hey, this looks like a great project, we really need it. Yeah, we have the ability to give you the PUD.
We could
better do it that way?
We certainly could do that. I know historically during my time in New Prague, the reason not to change that has been that not having a number in the ordinance is something that developers don't like to see, because they don't know what they can bring to the table and actually get approval on. They will like it when things are written in the ordinance and know that, hey, I've got a project, I can bring that forward and it'll work, and not spend a bunch of money and ultimately get turned down. We could certainly do that, though. It's just a different way of approaching that planning unit development type of review.
Okay, I'd like to hear from the council if maybe that isn't the way we should look at it. Like Belle Plaine and Savage, Prior Lake, they all have less units than 33, but yet they still have the ability to give a developer a chance to apply for it.
Ken, this is Chuck, is that an additional step through the planning commission then?
Yeah.
The PUD?
It's pretty similar to reviewing a conditional use permit, except you're more looking at what the densities would be allowed on a case-by-case basis. Should you want to have that be a conditional use to allow planning unit development for any apartment, let's say over the 5 units. It's another step of review for all those projects, but it is certainly a way that it can be done.
I think that would be a good compromise if we all feel, or the majority of us feels, that we should lower the number of the density and then still allow a developer to bring their plans to the table in considering a PUD.
Rick, Bruce?
This is Bruce, if you can hear me.
Yep.
I guess I'm not too bothered by the 32, 30 or whatever number. I think the price of inputs and the land costs are different than they were in the past, and there's a benefit of trying to increase affordability by allowing this is a strategy to help affordability in town and provide some other types of housing that's may not be as available in the future as it might be now. So I'm not bothered by that, and cost of land is different than it was in the past. So there's an economies of scale, obviously, with 30 or 32. So I'm not bothered by that so much, especially since we're talking about adding a design requirement to it. The PUDs are one of the issues that's being criticized at the legislature now, and with the builders, PUDs is a much larger hoop to jump through. Would you say, Ken, in planning and trying to put a project together?
Yeah, that's why I brought that up. The developers don't like the uncertainty of a planning unit development, certainly as it relates to the units, and to even propose a project with the uncertainty, basically through to the end of that review process, that they may not even have a project that'll work after putting funds into it. And obviously you have that risk with any project, conditional use permit or whatnot. That is one of the things that's been brought up in the those housing cost reports that have been circulating around. It's been kind of the target of that.
Yeah, the other criticism of that is you're really subject to every, there's not necessarily a consistency with the PUDs, depending upon what city council is going to see it, what planning and zoning committee is going to look at it, who your staff is that's going to look at it, and if you want a lot more variables to it. But there's certainly it's a good tool, but as far as something like this, I don't know that we need to have a case-by-case review for an apartment building, but that's just my take on it, so.
Well, I think this is exactly why the city of New Prague tried to opt out and ultimately did from the Met Council, was because we didn't want to have these somebody else telling us what we have to build in New Prague and where to put it and how many units and everything else. And you know, it's my feeling that I would rather have, whether it's this council or after I'm long gone, at least letting the city weigh in on it. And the elected officials who represent those taxpayers, let them decide whether they want this project or they don't want this project, depending on what it is. Again, I don't have any problem with the one that we're starting with Marv's, and especially the spot that it's in and whatever else. But I just like to have I think we should have some type of control, or a little bit more control, than just opening it up to the second easiest density thing in Scott County, and be behind the 8 ball of ice. And there's more and more developers that want to, you know, put up more different apartments and everything else in areas that maybe, you know, wouldn't necessarily be good to be put in, even though they're zoned properly now. But, you know, looking down the future, we don't change zoning very often, but that doesn't mean that we might not come into a situation that we would.
I see your point. I wish it would be nice to have a problem with someone wanting to put up a 32 unit apartment. That's a good problem to have. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, and I know where you're coming from, Bruce. I'm not opposed to a 32 unit apartment. The ones I don't want to see is when they come in and they want a 200 unit apartment and it's multiple buildings, and you know, changes the entire feel and dynamic of what New Prague and the history of New Prague is. And I think I'm not saying we couldn't do 200 units. I mean, but for the developer that wanted to do a big project, not a 32 unit, you know, it's real easy. I don't think he'd have a problem going through an extra step with the PUD if he really wanted to build a big unit or complex like that.
I'm trying to think on the fly here, guys. You know, another thing we could do is have, you know, apartment units to a certain number of units, or apartment buildings to a certain number of units as a permitted use. And then as a conditional use, I don't know what that number would be, some other project size, and just have it be a conditional use at that time, again, to get that additional review out there if they get too large. I don't know, Sean, if that's 50 units, 75 units, or 100 units, but I do understand what you're saying there.
And for a conditional use, it doesn't seem like the number of units is a condition. You would never deny the condition later based on it.
I think the conditions would be, and I'm trying to think on the fly here, based on, you know, what where you might run into traffic considerations, for example. Trying to look in our code book for our, when we require traffic impact studies, for example. It is 140 units, excuse me, when we would require a traffic impact study. So I don't know if that's a good triggering point or not. But I throw that out there as the conditional use permit is for when would a project require mitigating conditions to be added to make it acceptable?
Well, Rick here, guys, we're not voting on any of that. The number is 32, isn't it? And I mean, you can't change a plan after you're building a 32 unit apartment building. You can't go back and change it For the needs, where, if we need more apartments, we just got to build another building. I guess if I wanted to make any argument on this, I'd have to look at, the vacancy rate at the apartments that exist around in town already. But we're talking about 32 units, Ken? Isn't that what we're talking about?
Well,
That's
we're not
correct.
talking about a specific project at hand, Rick. We're talking about the amending the ordinance to allow 32 units an acre, which could be a number of units depending on the size of the property.
And Sean, you
Go
don't
ahead.
see it as the more the merrier, huh? I don't know.
What's that?
I think it was
Better.
as restrictive as it was because of prior councils and the feeling from the community that they didn't want to become another Shakopee with every block has another apartment on it. I just think that it changes the feel and the look that the people of New Prague were going for. And again, I don't have a problem with getting a new apartment building. I like Marv's idea and his program, and I like the design building requirements that's in this unit. But I just don't know why we have to loosen it so much that we become the second highest number in Scott County. I mean, I think, why if we go to 22, why can't we go to 26 and then fall somewhere in the middle of the other cities and then see where it is, or change the requirement, change the other ordinance that would give us the PUD, and instead of changing this ordinance and lessening those standards, then we could still build them and developers could still come in and they got to do one extra step and go through the planning and zoning and then to the council. I mean, I don't see that as being too big of a hindrance for a developer that's seriously looking at putting up an apartment building because there's a need for it.
But I think that, this is Chuck, I think the PUD gives the option of getting those big apartments by going through one step, and it could be a different council. So it's going to go against the argument that the reason for the policy would be to keep that small town charm. That's my problem with the PUD.
Well, it gives the council and the planning commission the right to do it, and not just some loose standards that anybody can come in and we have no way of stopping once it starts. And it could be, again, I'm not worried about the 32 unit that Marv wants to put up. I'm worried about the guy that wants to come in and take a big corner over and put in 4 buildings of 100 apiece. And now we got 400 apartments on Main Street or wherever, maybe where the old mill is. So this would just give us the ability, or the elected officials the ability, to make that decision. I mean, I don't know why anybody would be against that. I mean, it's not preventing it. It's not really hindering anybody from coming in and appearing in front of the planning commission. They might have to wait 2 weeks, but I can't see that killing a project of a multi-million-dollar project. If the developer was really serious about it.
This is Mike speaking. Sean's concerns can happen with the changes you're proposing, can they?
Say that again, Mike.
Mike,
Sean,
can you repeat?
Sean's concerns that he's highlighting with the numbers that he's talking about, with the density that you have on a per acre basis, can't occur on the level that he's describing, can it?
On a 5-acre parcel, for example, what we're proposing would allow up to 160 units, 5 acres. And that's not a pretty large piece of property that you see in Shakopee or Prior Lake, where you have upward 100 on those sites.
You were breaking up there, for me anyway, so I didn't understand what you said.
Right.
Are you saying that it's limited to a 5-acre site?
No, I was just making an example of, if you had
Okay.
a 5-acre site, for example, a apartment complex, if they're going to maximize out at our 32 units per acre, they could get 160 units on a 5-acre site. Is that very realistic in New Prague? Probably not, but it's nowhere on the magnitude of what you see in Shakopee with high-rise apartments or anything like that. You're upwards of 50 to 100 units per acre in a lot of
Yeah,
those.
and it's multiple stories, well over 3 stories.
Yes. And I fully agree. Yeah, we still have the height limitation, which is going to obviously limit how much area, because once you start allowing heights to go up, your floor area ratios go through the roof, and that's where you really get your big units and your different heights and different things like that. We're still limited to essentially about 4 floors to a building with our 50-foot height limit, and we still have parking requirements and those types of things. We really aren't opening the door very far here. We're actually going to the level of actually allowing apartments to be built. And right now, I truly believe we have not seen any because of our low number that we allowed currently.
Well, I'd be willing at this point, if everyone had a chance to discuss, to make a motion to introduce the ordinance as it's written.
Okay.
I'll
What did you say, Rick?
This is Rick. I'll second that. Is that a motion, Maggie?
Yes, it is.
All right.
Okay.
I'm-
I got a motion by Maggie Bass, second by Rick Seiler, to have the first reading of the ordinance changes on the densities for residential zoning district. Is there any other comments? If not, we'll go to vote. Councilmember Bass,
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan,
Nay.
Councilmember Wolf,
Aye.
Councilmember Seiler,
Aye.
Mayor Nicolai, aye. Okay, it passes 4-1.
Ken, can I ask a question quick?
Yes,
PUDs are allowed on any zone, aren't they?
they are. Yes,
So that's something that's available whatever we do.
they are. But currently, the way the PUD is written, it does not allow an increase in the densities over the base zoning district that you're located in. So that's where I was getting at. It currently does not allow you to get 50 units an acre on a site that only allows 32, for example.
So there's a limitation on the PUD wording in the ordinance?
Currently, it is, yes.
Restricts it?
Currently, that's the way it's written.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is resolution approving the variance for reduction from the required 50-foot wetland setback. Ken, I assume you're taking this also?
Yep, we've got another slideshow here for you. So this is request for V3 2020, wetland setback for construction of a new home. K Wet Construction is the applicant. The Planning Commission reviewed this request at their March 25th, 2020 meeting. K Wet is proposing to reduce the wetland setback from 50 feet to the edge of the existing buffer easement, which in the case of this lot is currently no less than 40 feet. There's some areas where the buffer is a little more than 40 feet, but it's no less than 40. And this is for a new home to be constructed. The lot in question is over 66% covered by the wetland and or the buffer area, which obviously impacts the use of the lot and prevent a home from similar size and appearance to others in the neighborhood from being constructed. The home is being constructed actually for Steve and Jenny Yetzer, so it's not just a spec home. And the Planning Commission meeting, we did have comment from Jason Witt, the applicant, who noted that they placed the house on the lot in order to minimize the impact to that wetland and obviously maintain the full buffer easement area. So when you look at the site plan, you'll see that they've pushed the house very close to the edge of that buffer area and the easement, but not into it. At the Planning Commission meeting, Council Representative Ryan did ask Jason Witt, the applicant, to verify that the Yetzers were aware that a deck could not be placed on the back side of the home. And Mr. Witt did indicate that the Etzers were aware of that fact. The Planning Commission ultimately did recommend approval on a 3-0 vote. Here's some site maps for everybody. Hopefully you can kind of see my pointer here. So this is the wetland itself. It's not a high quality wetland, but it is a wetland due to vegetation and obviously wetness of the ground. So you can kind of see that on the overhead there. A little bit better zoom in. The buffer actually covers the entire west portion of the lot. You can see some high ground here. Theoretically speaking, even with the setbacks being in place, there is some buildable area here, but due to the fact that an easement covers the entire western portion of the lot, it's actually not a buildable area there right now due to that fact. But we're talking about the house being located on the east side of the lot. So we'll get into the details here on the overhead. So this is just a line drawing view of the wetland. It's outlined in green per the plat that was done back in 2007. And then we have the buffer area, which is denoted by the orange line. So that is of record on the plat, and that is the protected area around the wetland to protect that wetland. You can see they're putting the house very close to the edge of that on a couple areas here, but not encroaching into it. They have a small area for window well here that you can see that's not encroaching into the wetland area either. So they are maintaining that, but as Councilmember Ryan pointed out and Mr. Witt confirmed, there is really no room for a deck in the back of the house here, but they are aware of that. The homeowners of the Etzers are aware of that occurring. A couple other things to point out here for you. The design of the house is very, very similar to the house to the south. Now that was a variance that was granted on that lot for the wetland setback as well back in 2019. And when we did that variance review, we noted this lot would be coming forth shortly, and here that is. And this house is a very, very similar design due to the fact that the lot is very wide but not very deep. This house varies in that it has a fourth garage stall that actually lends itself well to the use of the lot and the width that is available there. But fits in very well with the neighborhood. If you, we'll look at the pictures in a minute here, we'll show you that. So ultimately, staff and the Planning Commission recommend approval of this variance from the wetland setback to allow the home to be to the edge of the wetland buffer. And that would allow for that new home at 600 Eastland Avenue with the findings. And then one condition in the staff report was that the applicant install wetland buffer signs at north and south property lines where that buffer crosses the property line. So very similar condition to what we had required at the home directly to the south at 602 Eastland as well. A couple of photos here for you so you can see kind of the narrow depth of the lot here. The home's actually staked out. You can see that on the photo there. The house to the south is the one that the variance is granted for, and they were granted the variance kind of for that northwest corner of the home. A couple other photos here for you. You can see the look of the house here, the one that was granted the variance in 2019, very, very similar to the one we're looking at here tonight, except the one tonight has an additional fourth garage stall on the end. Should fit in very well with the neighborhood according to Planning Commission and staff's interpretation of this. And just another view here and a picture of the wetland buffer signs that they have to install. And that just notifies the homeowner now and in the future that that's a protected area. You can't mow in the buffer area, that type of thing. So with that, I'll end staff's report and turn it back to the council.
Okay, any comments or questions for Ken regarding this variance?
Yeah, Chuck, it's Rick. Yeah, well, you know, I have a problem with that. We keep encroaching a little close to these wetlands, but, you know, as Ken told me today, that the wetland is very high quality and everything, but, you know, it was only a month ago when I think it was me and Sean voted against encroaching in on these wetlands, but I don't know, you know, with this one here, with the looks of it, and you look at the property, I'm willing to probably go with it, but I really want to warn the council, we're coming pretty close to encroaching on these wetlands, and that's not a good deal. But I'm probably going to say yes to this after I hear your comments, but I'm really interested to hear what your comments are. Oh,
Any other comments?
This is Bruce. I have a comment.
Okay.
Do I understand correctly that the northwest corner is not in the wetland easement?
Let me pull the map up here for you, Bruce. 1 second. The northwest corner of the house is not in, none of this house is in the easement that exists. The orange line, on you see following my cursor here, the orange
No,
line.
I'm sorry, Ken, the northwest corner of the lot.
Oh,
Where you said it was buildable, but
yep. That is all in an easement. When this was platted, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but the easement covers the entire area, even to the west, by the easement. That's the only reason that northwest corner is not buildable, is due to the easement, not necessarily due to the 50-foot setback from the wetland edge. It's kind of a quirk of this lot, but I did want to point that out.
So does the easement match the property line, or is it that red line on the northwest corner?
The easement actually is this orange line, and then it goes all the way to the edge. That is the property line for the lot, Bruce. Correct. This is just, whoop, let me go back here. This red line denotes where a 50-foot setback would be. I just drew that in to show that, technically speaking, this corner would be buildable if not for the easement covering that whole side of the lot.
Okay, so my concern was just that we don't have a space that someone's going to have to maintain or mow or something.
They'll probably
So
mow it.
But they don't have to because that's part of the easement, correct?
They don't have to, right. They don't have to, and they necessarily shouldn't be mowing it, but I believe a neighbor to the west has been mowing that. They don't actually own that lot or that portion. I believe they've been mowing it. Maybe Jason, if you can hear on the call, if you know more about that, but I don't think you guys have been maintaining it as lot owners for this time.
Correct. Jason Witt here. Yes, they have been mowing it voluntarily.
But they technically can't mow it because of the easement, correct? They're not supposed to be mowing it?
Technically, they shouldn't be mowing it. That's correct.
Okay. And then this is just for my own curiosity. Is there any monies or anything to put native grasses or something in that? Or how does this get maintained afterwards? How does the homeowner maintain that wetland area? Do they plant something on it?
So when wetlands are put in place now, and Jason, maybe you could speak to what was done at this time here, if anything was disturbed, but we would require on a development today to put in a certain type of wetland plant mix, seed mix, and then maintain that. Or if there was a quality buffer in place, we would require that to be maintained. Now, obviously, you have to do weed control and different things throughout, but you know, we're not out there monitoring each of these individually, even on the city's own properties, but we do monitor for noxious weeds just under the nuisance ordinance. But for the most part, we just want it left alone and to grow naturally.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Jason Witt again, just to further an answer for you, Bruce, that in this wetland, for example, we weren't able to change grades or anything. So silt fence was put around it and we weren't allowed to go into it. So it's all the existing vegetation that was there before we started.
okay, any other comments?
Thanks.
If not, I guess I'll look for a motion to approve the variance.
So moved.
I'll
Motion
second.
by-
This is Matt.
A motion by Sean Ryan, second by Maggie Bass. If there's any other comments? If not, we'll take a vote. Councilmember Bass,
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan,
Aye.
Councilmember Wolf,
Aye.
Councilmember Seiler,
Aye.
Mayor Nicolai, aye. It passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Jason.
Thank you.
Okay, next, Ken, are you taking this also? It's the Veterans Memorial.
Oh, Mike's got that one.
Okay. Okay, Mike. Hey, Mike.
That assumes you'll unmute me. Does it still sound terrible?
It's not echoing now, but
All right, I'll give it a shot. If maybe I'll just call in. What you have is the ordinance that was prepared by the city attorney. I'll give Ken a second to pull it up here.
bear with me. There we go. All right.
There you go. If you go to that, this was what was put together by the city attorney in regards to compliance with section 416.01 of the Minnesota statutes. And basically, because we've gotten a indication from the American Legion Post 45 that they want to be able to put together the Veterans Memorial on this site. And that site is shown on a map, which is a 60 by 60 site just adjacent to and east of the sidewalk going to the drinking fountain in Memorial Park. That this creates the opportunity to do so with the understanding that the erection, maintenance, control, and supervision would all be the responsibility of the Legion Post 45, and that the city will not have any responsibility as far as any costs concerning that maintenance, repairs, lighting, control, and supervision. And we have $0 that we're necessarily putting into that. The ordinance is just the underlying authorization that the council would be taking action on to create this opportunity. So you would introduce at this meeting, consider adopting at the April 20th meeting. We would publish. The more formal, stringent relationship would be done by way of an agreement with the Legion that we would bring forward on May 4th, along with a copy of the plans that you would take a look at and generally review and approve before entering into the agreement.
Okay, anyone have any questions for Mike?
So is this an
Bruce.
action?
Hold on now. Mike, can you go on mute? Okay, any comments now?
Is this an action that needs to be moved?
Yes, eventually, once the comments are over, we are going to make a motion for the first reading of this ordinance. Correct, Ken?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Any other comments or questions? Okay, if not, I'll make request a motion.
Second.
Okay, I made the motion and I got a second by who? Rick?
Sean,
John? So I got the motion by Mayor Nicolai, seconded by Sean Ryan. Is there any other further comments? Okay, if not, Councilmember Bass,
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan,
aye.
Councilmember Wolf,
Aye.
Councilmember Seiler,
Aye.
Mayor Nicolai, aye. It passes 5-0. Thank you. Next, we have, I assume, Glenn, you are going to take this regarding your copy release?
I am. So this is Glenn, Public Works Director. Currently, we have a copier up at my office, which is at the Public Works Garage, that is on a lease through Metro Sales. It's a tabletop copier, does color prints and black and white naturally, but that's about it. It does what we need it to do. Currently, we're paying $79 on this lease, but it is up on April. Shoot, lost that. Expires on April 8th. We did talk to Metro Sales, not only about this copier, but going forward, because they have a lot of other copiers throughout the city departments. But they proposed giving me, or the Public Works, pretty much the same kind of copier. It's a newer model, naturally. The cost goes up to $81 a month. And then along with this, we would be signing a guaranteed protection plan for $49 a month. I'm sorry, $49 per quarter, which includes 3,000 black and white copies, where now we pay for each black and white copy. And then also includes all the toner, unlimited maintenance calls, things like that. We've had very good luck through the years with Metro Sales. So that would be the reason why I would recommend to the mayor and council to authorize the lease on this copier. It's a C400F copier. The lease is through US Bank, and the copier comes from Metro Sales along with the guaranteed protection plan.
Okay, anyone have any questions for Glenn?
Bruce, I have a quick question. Is the printer networked in, or is it a standalone?
I believe it's standalone. I don't know. I'm assuming you're asking, can anybody else from other departments? Now, within my department, there's two other guys that can use this printer. I don't know that anybody from City Hall can print on it. Is that your question, Bruce?
Yeah, you can print it off of all those computers in your building, or anyone else could if they have the authority to do it?
That's correct, yes. And that's the way it is used.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments?
I'll move it.
Okay, I got a motion by Rick Seiler.
This is Maggie, I'll second.
And a second by Maggie Bass. So if there's no other comments, we will do a roll call vote to approve the copier lease with Metro Sales. Councilmember Bass?
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan?
Aye.
Councilmember Wolf?
Aye.
Councilmember Seiler?
Aye.
Mayor Nicolai? Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Next, Jim, I assume you want to talk about a new police car? Is Jim still there?
Yeah, he's muted. You're muted.
Why all the yelling?
Well, if you have any questions, just let me know then.
Perfect. That was the best presentation you've done in a long time.
Mayor and council, this is a memo regarding the squad car for 2020 budget. We do have one budgeted. At this time, it could be ordered, and it would still be a 2020, so the pricing would be the same. If they would put a 2021 in place of it, my understanding is the pricing would also hold. I spoke to Gerard out at New Prague, or Jeff Belzer Ford, and he talked about a demo incentive in which could lower the price by up to $1,200, and that's what we would be looking at
he didn't know all the ins and outs of it yet. And the idea is they order the vehicle per the spec that a customer might want, but once it's on their lot, they can demo it out for 30 days, and then they get a incentive off the price of it of another $1,200. But with the same memo or same pricing as last year, it was within $170 off the state contract. And again, I think going local with Jeff Belzer's, keeping the business local, along with all of the maintenance that goes on with them, that it'd be the best option for the city to continue to do business with Jeff Belzer Ford. If you take a look at the back of the memo, there is a replacement scale or schedule for squad cars. And that just, I'd be looking at replacing the 2014 this year. And once that's in the rotation, then we would be looking at turning those vehicles over about every 5 years. At this time, Bruce had expressed interest in possibly taking control of the 2014 Ford utility police interceptor to utilize it in his departments.
I suppose Bruce wants to keep all the bells and whistles on it too, huh?
He mentioned that we could leave everything on there.
Anyone
But
have,
otherwise, does anybody have any questions at all?
okay, if there's no questions, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the new squad car.
Second,
Second by who?
Rick Seiler.
Okay, second by Rick Seiler. So if there's no other comments, Councilmember Bass,
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan,
Aye.
Councilmember Wolf,
Aye.
Councilmember Seiler. Mayor Nikolai, aye. It passes 5-0. Okay, good. Jim, I guess you're going to be taking the next item also, kind of giving us an update on our COVID-19 community operations.
Yes, I can do that. As you all are aware, Executive Order 2001 declared the peacetime emergency back on March 13th. And on the 15th of March, Executive Order 2002 ordered the temporary closure of the public schools. It continued to go on with that to March 16th with Executive Order 2004 ordering the closure of the bars, restaurants, and other places of public accommodation. Initially, that was put into place for March 17th through March 27th. On that same day, the mayor put into place an emergency temporary declaration for the city of New Prague and action allowing for public meetings to be held by electronic means, either telephonic and or by video. The council then took action to extend the declaration of emergency until it was determined it is no longer necessary. With that in place, these actions allowed city staff to prepare our policies and procedures to manage staff, resources, and develop safety protocols for all staff. These actions included procurement of ample safety supplies, equipment and cleaning supplies, developing a strategy to maintain a healthy workforce. That included various measures such as minimizing some of the scheduling. Hang on, I just lost it here. developing these strategies was executed in all departments, which included dividing the workforce into teams and making schedule changes to minimize contact with team members and also have no contact with other teams within the respective department. That's important, I think, to maintain that healthy workforce so that we are in fact able to maintain the workforce and provide for the services that are necessary. This included managing these teams with a blend of schedule change, working from home, and rotating some employees out of the workforce to make sure they have adequate numbers of healthy employees to serve the needs of the city. On March 25th, the Executive Order 2018 extended the date for the restaurants, bars, and other places of accommodation to be closed until May 1st. On that same date, Executive Order 2020 directed Minnesotans to stay at home from March 27th through April 10th. Since that time, we've been having minimally 2 meetings, staff meetings per week, where we discuss any other needs or any material needs for the city or any safety measures that we have to take for our employees. I do attend a couple Department of Public Safety web meetings on Mondays and Fridays. Mike and I do a weekly chiefs and administrator meeting just to discuss what's happening in each city and keep abreast of what's going on with employee and workforce management, and then also the illnesses and the numbers that are happening. I'm also in contact, semi-daily contact with both emergency management from each county. Keeping in mind that while we are working on this, doing this, and also all employees are dealing with a total IT replacement of the city networks. So all IT equipment and the network is being turned over. So we're staying busy enough at this time. But I think overall within the city, people are really adhering to stay at home, doing what they normally or should be doing according to the executive orders, with the exception of some minor things that are going on. We've had about 12 complaints of executive orders. And then I'm also tracking our COVID responses that we've changed some of within the police department, we've changed some of how we do our servicing in regards to COVID-19. And we've had 2 instances where we did not respond to a medical because it didn't rise to a life-saving measure. So in that, we may go to the area of the medical, but we allow the North Ambulance to attend for that. I just kind of summarized some of the things we were doing in all the departments. I don't know if any of the department heads want to talk about how the scheduling change affects them directly. But really, the important thing was that we take time to divide those teams and keep those workforces separated so that if one team does come down with it, we're still able to provide services for the rest of the city. With that being said, time is going to tell, I guess, before the end of the week. I would expect that the governor would put an extension on his stay at home. But even on our DPS meeting today, there was no indication which way the governor was going with that. But I would believe that he may extend it to the end of the month along with the bar closings and everything else. Any questions at all?
I'd kind of like to hear from the department heads if we could on how it affects each department, especially like Bruce with the linemen and probably like the wastewater, the essential infrastructure issues.
I guess if you want, I'll start off. I've kind of got my departments all doing different things, Sean. I'll just kind of quick go through them on my line department. Due to the safety concerns, I've got to have them team working, can't be working alone. So I've got them divided up into a couple of teams and then working on projects independently so that we still have staff to maneuver around should one of those teams become ill. On the water department, we've pretty much departmentized those staff members into each taking care of either outside plant, inside plant, SCADA control, and then management. So they're not crossing over those lines, not taking breaks together, and just ultimately being responsible for their own areas. And hopefully if one of those becomes sick, then we can transition one of those members into multitasking into different departments. My generation staff is working 2 shifts. I have a early morning shift starting about 5 in the morning, working through about noon. And then we have an open time there where nobody crosses paths there. And then I have an evening shift working until about 8 p.m. And so far, obviously it's disrupted some of their family schedules and so, but they've been really accommodating and it's working really well. So that's working out. As far as myself and then my operations director, Kenny Zwaber, we stay pretty much separated, just communicate via computer and phone. And then I've been working from home part of the time to minimize my availability to being in contact with those and cross-contaminating those groups. So, and then obviously I can back those up if need be. So they're making some sacrifices, but it's working out. So hopefully that continues.
Okay, Glenn?
I'll go next. This is Glenn, Public Works. A lot of what Bruce said is the same for us in Public Works. Wastewater is split up in teams of 2 coming in. One team coming in 1 week early. The other team basically same hours, like 5 a.m. till noon, and then a break there so they don't cross paths, and then 12:30 till like 7:30, 8 o'clock, something like that. Those 4 guys are broke up, and even when a lot like the line guys, there's a lot of jobs they have to do together just because of OSHA rules, safety reasons, things like that. If they don't have to, we're telling them, even if you're going to the same lift station, take 2 different trucks. Try to stay separate as much as you can. Street guys are coming in when need be. There's like this week, there's 3 of those guys coming in to start street sweeping and blowing rock off of yards and stuff from the seal coat projects last year. We're limiting, I'm limiting those guys to the hours that they work or the number of guys that come in so that we can keep them separate. And same thing with the parks, they're coming in separately to do their need to do today jobs. But those are the people that we would rely on to hopefully stay healthy if something happens to one of the members of each team or of a team at the wastewater plant. Street guys aren't wastewater experts, but they're another set of hands. So we'd be using them to then again somehow split up the wastewater team and go that route. No different than being able to give a helping hand to electric department, water department, any other department that would need it because of something that happens to one of their members in that department. That's Public Works. I'm working from home some days. Like today I was in all day because of them switching out the IT stuff. I'll be back on Wednesday. So 2 days out of the week, come in most of the day. The other days I'm working from home. Basically, if I can do it from home, I'm doing it from home. If I have to come in, then I do come in.
Okay, thank you. Mike, do you want to kind of give us, or Ken, do you want to give us what's going on in your department?
Ken, go ahead and take planning and building inspection and I'll pick up the other part.
Yep, so planning and building inspection, we split up our department, myself and Scott Sasser on one team, and then Chad Lunder, our building official, and Deborah on another team. So we're doing that obviously to continue to maintain inspection services. We're not going into occupied houses at this point, but we're continuing to do outside inspections. We are continuing to do nuisance enforcement, code enforcement. Commercial buildings that aren't occupied, we're doing those inspections. So we obviously have the addition at the strip mall that will be coming up here shortly. And then we've got a few other commercial projects going on. So we're continuing to move those forward. New homes that are not occupied. We've actually had a number of new home permits come in the past couple of weeks here. So we've been actually very busy. We're able to do plan review remotely, certainly with our new computers that are coming in now that will greatly enhance what we're able to do in the office and out of the office. So we'll continue to be able to keep on top of all that. And then we're doing a lot of old file follow-up and scanning to get those taken care of, which is a project we always kind of worried about having time to get to, but with City Hall closed, we're able to focus our efforts on that and really plow through those files and get them digital. And people are still able to apply for permits online. They can apply via email, phone. So we've been pretty busy here, especially with the weather warming up. So we'll continue to do that. We just, at this point, until the stay-at-home order is lifted, we're not going into structures with residents in them at this point. But should that change, we have PPE from for our inspectors for gloves and the face masks. So I think we're in good shape, but keeping things moving forward as best we can. And I know the construction trades guys appreciate that, that we're still here and able to continue reviewing permits and doing inspections. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Michael?
Over on the finance, accounting, payroll, purchasing, utility billing, and general City Hall contact, they're using the same methods that Ken just described in planning and building inspection. That Patty and the 5 ladies are broken up into 2 3-person teams with alternating days and work schedules very similar to what Ken has. I've joined one of the teams in Kent's area so that he and I are working off shift, so that basically if somebody needs something from the city, that either he or I are at City Hall. And so we're out of the office on the other days. They made me reluctantly not come in every day. That they said I was going to be the major cause of problems if I didn't split up on one of the teams. And so I agreed at the urging of our emergency management director, I joined one of the teams. So I'm complying. So that's kind of what we're doing that way. So I think, as you can see, that we put a lot of great thought into it, trying to maintain that in small departments where you have only 2 employees, i.e. building inspection, we need to make sure that they're not working at the same time. In wastewater, where we had 4 guys, Glenn's got them split up 2 and 2. So we've tried to look at that to make sure that we're always going to be able to hopefully continue to provide services, and that we are very cognizant about trying to minimize impact to employees as well as service delivered to the public.
Okay.
How about Jim?
Yeah, Jim, what is the police department doing?
I set mine up in 2 teams also. Where
Mike, put yours
we
on.
are able to.
Thank you.
Oh, there you go. Where we are able to cover the patrol with 4 members at a time, and they work 4 days on and then have 4 days off, and the other team works. So they are separated also. And then with administration, Tim and I are working opposites, and records department, Judy and Jessica are working opposites. We are able to provide generally the same services, with the exception of walk up to the windows not happening. If somebody comes in with a gun purchase, permit. We service them outside in the outside lobby area, in the entryway, and are able to just practice social distancing, and we have our hygiene protocols that we follow anytime there's a exchange of any paperwork or anything else. With the officers on the street, just keeping them educated on protocols and providing them with safety equipment. That's the biggest thing right now, is providing them with the safety equipment they need.
If one or two of them were to get sick, do we have plans for that in a department like yours, or the wastewater, where there's only 3 or 4 employees, and if half of them are sick or 2 of them are sick, what does that do to us? Does that put us do we have backup plans for that, or?
Tim and I would be able to service that. Of the 4 that are on a team, 1 team member is off, and the shifts are being covered by 3 people at a time. So that gives that person a 12-day period to be off and recuperate, to stay healthy is the idea. And with that, those individuals that were off may be able to be utilized at that time, if they are healthy, be brought back into a quasi another team anyways. So that's the idea. At this time, throughout the city. Pardon?
I'm sorry, would that include overtime? I mean, would that throw the budget out of whack if somebody had to work extra shifts because 2 people were down?
Yeah. If we had to get things covered, other than if we could incorporate Sergeant Applin or myself into the schedule, we would utilize that as long as we could also. With that, again, the idea is, depending on where the numbers go and what happens, we will have to cross that. I know all the chiefs in the county are talking about being able to work together, because Belle Plaine, Jordan, Elko New Market, we're all in the same boat, that if 50% of the department gets sick, we would need assistance, and we would work together to try and cover that in that event. Along with the county also. So we have some strategic plans in place to maintain that. But overall, everybody's doing well. The other thought I had is, again, at this time, we are not checking employees. Some entities are taking temperatures of employees when they report to work. I think all of the supervisors have a handle on their employees, have discussed the need to be healthy at work, and that if there are any concerns, that they're brought right to the manager. The manager or the supervisor would have to make that decision on, does it hit enough of the checkpoints with our protocols that that individual should be sent home for a period of time to see if anything develops from him. I know I am reading a lot about a lot of asymptomatic people that are test positive for COVID-19, but do not demonstrate any or very minimal symptoms with it. So that is something we'll have to deal with as it continues to unfold and we see where it's going to go.
Okay, thank you.
Sean, to answer your question on the wastewater side. Oh, that's why we split them up, so that there's teams of 2 and they don't cross paths at like noon at the end of their shift and another shift's coming in. Because the theory in my mind, hopefully nobody gets sick, but if it does happen, it's going to affect one team, where then I have to split up the other team to have a wastewater guy in the morning, wastewater guy in the afternoon, and then 2 guys from the street department come down. That's the extra set of hands that they need to be safe, live by OSHA rules, things like that. The other thing that I think we probably, all of us forgot to mention, and I just thought of it now, I believe all the departments are doing this, is we have chlorine and water mixture in spray bottles. And every employee is instructed that before you sit down at a table and after you get up from that table, being a break, a lunch, or whatever you're doing, you spray that area down, wipe it down. If you were in a vehicle, you spray that steering wheel, the shifter, the blinker, the doorknob, anything you've touched through the day. And at the end of each shift, they go around and everyone that is there, and most days today, it's probably only one or two in some of these departments, but they're wiping door handles down. They're wiping everything before they leave. And the next people that show up for the afternoon shift is instructed to do the same. You do not assume they wiped down before they left. You wipe the table down before you eat, sit down and eat your lunch, or sit down for break. So, and everybody's been very good at that. Of what I've seen, the public works garage smells like a bleach factory, which is great because that means they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So.
Okay. Good job, guys.
Chuck, I should add that Jim didn't mention the fire department, but we've worked with them as well to cut back on training and their response to calls and everything to ensure that they minimize the number of attendees so that we are able to keep those guys safe. As an example, just up the road, one of the cities lost 9 of their 30 firemen due to this stuff. So it's really a tricky thing to stay on top of with all departments.
Okay.
That being said, we're also working with North Ambulance in our response protocols. So we're both feedback going both ways for that.
All right, anything else to add? Okay, if not, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Does anyone
I'm
have
sorry,
any-
Chuck, I had a couple questions if I could.
Oh, okay, sure, Bruce.
Well, I appreciate the work that everyone's done and the sacrifices that everyone's being made. Jim, could you talk, what complaints against the executive order were you referring to?
That'd be like a bar open or kids congregating in the parks or someplace that is not taking care of customers to keep them from social distancing, that type of thing.
Okay. Do you have any particular areas of concern or need for resources?
Not right now. I stay vigilant every day. Like today I ordered additional masks. They came available from a supplier that the city uses. I checked with emergency management on pricing and what kind of numbers they're getting. She said, hey, it's a good price. So I ordered up a couple hundred more today. But yeah, I'm just trying to order what we need. We have the bleach solutions and we also have some other cleaning. I have some hospital grade cleaning solutions that we can put in spray bottles also. So yeah, right now we're okay with that. I did order some face shields and some gowns that are actually washable. They're manufactured over in New Ulm. Those should be arriving here in the next day or two. And not that we're necessarily utilizing those immediately. Well, the face shields we probably will on certain calls that rise to that type of protocol, but just to have that stuff on hand right now and have it in place. The governor's executive orders, some of the off-numbered ones are also all about reaching out to hospitals, to EMS, police, ambulance, and fire to determine what kind of needs are out there right now. I know our Chiefs Association statewide was doing a survey on the masks, any PPE needs, how long or what we have in stock, how long they will last, and when we will need to replenish our stock. Their idea is to document all of that and allow for the supplies that the state EOC gets to distribute them to the departments that are in the highest need of it and then be able to continue to manage the resources that way. So yeah, we continue to work, and so far we've been able to maintain all of the safety equipment that we need right now.
Do we still have our same cleaning service? Do they come in the same amount of times? Or did our vendor stay with us, or did they not are they not operating?
They're doing the same work. I know Glenn had got a price from them about doing a little more thorough cleaning. But currently they're doing the same. I think in our facilities right now, I think throughout the city, our employees are doing a good job of cleaning up their areas and taking care of their personal areas to minimize any cross contamination that way.
Bruce,
But that
this
means
is Glenn. Oh. The only place that we discontinued cleaning on was the library. They used to do it 3 times a week. And because the library being closed, we didn't see the need to pay for it. And they allowed us to, we don't have to pay for it for as long as we want to stop it. And then we can just pick it up whenever we're ready to pick it up.
I understand they may be doing curbside library service soon.
Yeah,
you're
they
correct.
sent out an email. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey,
And then
Jim,
Mike?
Jim, I was out walking on, I believe it was Friday, downtown, about 11:30 in the morning, and there was a sign in front of Checkers that said service in the back from 5 to 7 p.m. So I don't know what they were doing. Because bar, he said, closed, right?
The bar part is closed. He put something on Facebook that he's doing meals or doing pizza and different short order things that he can make within his facility. And they're doing curbside delivery or take our to-goes through that.
The back door. Okay, all right. So it's just food only. All right, thanks.
Yep.
No, this is Mike, Maggie. He also has off-sale liquor as well, so he can sell off-sale.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
One other item, Mike, I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about, we did talk about the possibility of cash flow and cash on hand, and there's talk about property tax maybe being deferred, and just talk that you and Patty did some kind of stress testing and making sure that we have cash on hand and we shouldn't have any issue there.
Yeah, no, we've had discussion, the administrators with Scott County, because there is some discussion statewide on whether the governor's office and the legislature do anything with property taxes. The county doesn't have the abilities really to do much other than to follow state law there. But on our end is that we've always had cash flow capabilities for the first 6 months of the year. And then on top of that, we also have sufficient reserves beyond that in our cash balances, as well as some of our designated fund balances if that became necessary. So there are no current concerns by either Patty or myself about cash flow issues at the present time.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone have any other questions regarding the COVID-19?
Chuck, I think I'll jump in just because it kind of relates to what we're talking about here in regards to the COVID-19 stuff instead of doing it under miscellaneous, if that's all right.
Sure.
So Mike and I were contacted by one of the local businesses that have been forced to close down due to the statewide mandate. This owner of this business asked that the city and the utility remove all of the base charges for all utility services that the city and utility provides to our customers. However, at this business, they are still using utilities, water, electric, and obviously sewer. I just wanted to kind of go over that. Really, our base rates are structured to the point where they're a very small part of most commercial customers' billing, and most of the cost is placed on what they actually consume. So it would be my recommendation that we do not entertain any ideas of removing base rate charges. I think that's just going to open up a lot of miscommunication amongst a lot of different customers that are having troubles on their own, however that they're affected. Just on another note, the Utility Commission did decide at last week Monday's meeting to we're there to help customers make payment arrangements. We are not charging any type of late fees or penalties on past due balances. And we're more or less working through as if it were our cold weather rules. We're not making any disconnects. And we've kind of made the commission made the decision to do this until for sure May 15th. And so we've been working with a few customers that have issues. And it's really not too bad yet, but I think it's going to get a little bit worse. And Bruce, to your point, I mean, we've got reserves to help through this a little bit, and we're there to try to help our customers get through this. And I just wanted to make the council aware of that customer's concerned, and should you be approached on it, that you would know what's going on a little bit. That's all I have.
Thank you for the update, Bruce. Now, is there anything else on COVID-19? If not, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions within the consent agenda? If not, I guess I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
So I got a motion by Rick Seiler, second by Maggie Bass. If there's no other comments. Councilmember Bass?
Aye.
Councilmember Ryan?
Aye.
Councilmember Wolf?
Aye.
Councilmember Seiler?
Aye.
Mayor Nicolai? Aye. Passes 5-0. Now we're at the fun part of the thing, and if everyone noticed that Chris Cabot has been sitting there and enjoying, I don't know if he just had nothing else to watch on TV. So he thought he'd chime in, but I think Chris is here to kind of give us an update on the opening of the bids and the process that's going through, and hopefully we can get that on our agenda for the April 20th council meeting. So Chris, it's your floor.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Yeah, so I'm assuming you had seen the email that was sent out by Mike, just giving a quick summary of the bids, and there will be more brought forth before the April 20th meeting, when we do anticipate we'd be considering an award. There were 2 bids received, 2 bidders. The apparent low was SM Henches out of Jordan. If you recall, we've talked a lot about the St. James project, for example. They were the contractor that did St. James as well. The second bidder was Geislinger and Sons out of Watkins, Minnesota, another big contractor. The bids did come in high. Not really a surprise based on recent bids that we've been seeing since February. The bids came in at the apparent low was at $2.5 million. The second bid was at $13.4 million. And if you recall, back in February, the engineer's estimate was $10 million. So it came in about $2.3 million over the estimate. Now, the estimate was put together late last fall based on 2019 pricing. And we've definitely seen, this has kind of been par for the course for projects this season. Stuff bidding in January, February, March. In fact, I finally had gotten a hold of pricing from the Hutchinson project that bid in late February, as well as the bid pricing that LeSueur County project over in LeSueur, and had done a revised estimate the week prior to the bid opening, and I was expecting it to come in about just over 12 million. So from that standpoint, I guess we're in the ballpark, but we definitely have seen a big surge in costs that are kind of hard to explain. A lot of it in concrete, excavation, aggregate materials and things like that. So we're in the process of reviewing the bids, getting into the fine details. We'll be reviewing that with MnDOT and making our recommendation. So far, I mean, the majority of that 2.3 million is the largest share, over 50% is on the MnDOT side of the ledger, but obviously it impacted mostly the water and the sanitary sewer portions of the project. So they're picking up additional costs there too. So we'll definitely have more information prior to the next council meeting. And then just to highlight too, we are having two business property owner online meetings tomorrow, one at 9 o'clock and the other at 4 o'clock. We're doing it through the same format. We tried it 2 weeks ago on the 23rd or 24th, and we only had 2 attendees. But I think we got a little more word out. We sent reminder emails out. We asked the chamber to send it out to the members as well. Just really giving the folks an update on the proposed schedule change. And as of right now, it's still early. The contractor didn't want to commit to much, but I mean, this sounds like their plan is obviously to work on that west end as we had talked about, and they'd like to get the east end done as well, but it's really early yet, and they have not worked out all their schedules yet. So that's kind of where we're at. If you've got any questions.
Okay. I guess we'll look forward to the report on the next council meeting on the 20th. Thanks, Chris, for being so patient, and thanks for the update.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, miscellaneous. Okay, Ken, anything else you want to discuss?
You're on mute.
Caught you off
There we
guard.
go. Quick update on the computer network and everything. So cabling is almost done at City Hall here. I know, Bruce, you've done your facilities at this point, and they'll be finishing up the terminations and things probably by the end of the week here for the most part. Computer peripherals, being the laptops and the desktops and everything, have been rolled out to basically everybody, except for, I think, Mike Johnson's going to get his computer tomorrow, and then we have one other one out there. I think it's a shared computer between Glenn and Bruce at City Hall, but other than that, they're all out there. Other than my computer's on back order, and then the new squad car computers are on back order. They're from China. We don't know when they're going to get here exactly, but they keep telling us 2 weeks, but then they add another 2 weeks to it. Not CTS's fault by any means, but things are going well. And then our server is still about 3 weeks out, which we always intended. So all the new computers have gone well so far, I believe, from everybody. And I'm very happy with the work that's been done. I can't speak for everybody, but it's been pretty painless overall. But we're getting there, making very good progress, and we'll keep you in the loop as things move forward. But we're getting there.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, thank you very much, Glenn.
I got a couple things. I want to speak also on the IT stuff. I think CTS is doing a great job. They were up at Public Works today. Got 3 of us changed out on laptops and computers, and they stuck to it till they had a couple of little issues, but never stumped them real bad. So they're doing a great job, and they're very cautious, as we are too with them. We want to also recognize the fact that they're as concerned as the rest of us as far as getting sick. So try to keep our distances, and it just adds an extra level of a challenge to some of these jobs. So, but they're doing a great job. 2 other things. Compost site. Probably some of you have heard something. I know I talked to the mayor briefly this morning about it before his radio show. It happens every year. The compost site gets muddy, and we just shut it down for a period of time to keep people out of there, because if we don't, they'll just go in there and get stuck, and then they're even madder at us. So we just shut it down for it. Hopefully, if it doesn't rain, we're going to be opening it up this week, but it's springtime. It gets wet, and for some reason, everybody decided to start dumping at the end of the
at the gate that we put up every spring, and just kind of mixing it all together and just making another challenge out of that compost site. So nothing more than just your information on that. Hopefully we'll be opening it very soon. Mother Nature dictates that for us. The biosolid storage room is going well. That got slowed down because of this virus scare and everything else also, but we're at the point where all the electrical's done. The only thing that's left to do, and it's scheduled to happen starting next Monday, is to paint the floor, and then we are going to start drying, and hopefully we don't find any glitches with the bagging system that was in this room where the fire was. It's been inspected by a company that installs these units and test them and things like that, and they don't see a problem. So hopefully once we start up, there won't be a problem. And hopefully we'll be starting up by the end of April at this point, is the way it's looking for us. So that's all I got.
All right, thank you. Barb, you've been so quiet.
Hello. No, everything's good here. And I do also want to agree about CTS being a great company to work with. Can't you hear me?
Yes.
No. Okay.
My wife came in here because I yelled
What are you
Barb.
waving? Oh.
I yelled Barb and she came in here. I said, go.
So yes, everything's great. I love my new computer and it's running great. And I can work from home now, so that's wonderful.
Okay, good. Bruce, do you have any, Bruce Reimers, do you have any, anything else to add?
Just that you'll kind of notice crews are starting to work. We're going to be taking services out from kind of the Coburn's area out to the Jeff Belzer's area to get them on our electric system. So they've started that this week, and then water departments are starting a flushing of hydrants, and so you'll start seeing some of that work being done too, but on a somewhat limited basis due to crews being split up. But you'll just start to see that work taking place. That's all I had.
Okay. Patrick, you got anything you want to say from the media?
I'm fine.
Okay. Michael. Mike Johnson, what do you got?
One quick update at the golf club is that they started with the asbestos removal today. We had all the lighting taken out of the kitchen, and they started with the asbestos removal. And if they're done tomorrow or Wednesday, Chad has the contractor ready to come in that's going to be redoing the ceiling, possibly either late this week or starting Monday of next week. So that project is underway and should be done relatively quickly.
All right, good, thank you. James, anything else?
Just two things. I was in contact with Brooke the last couple of weeks from the chamber regarding the marathon. The marathon will not be in the same form that it has been. She is talking to the board and members on what they want to do. And the options would be to simply cancel it or to have some sort of virtual run where runners could go out and run on their own and then send in their times. So they're going to discuss that, but we will not have a running down the road for our marathon this year.
Okay.
The other thing was just if any council member has a question or something comes up and you'd like to run it by me, just give me a call. You can contact me on my cell anytime.
Okay, thank you. Chris, do you have anything else you want to add? Okay, Maggie?
No, nothing.
Okay, Rick?
No.
Sean?
Nope.
Bruce?
Yeah, I was going to introduce you to grandchild 9.
All right.
And then
That one.
grandchild 10 and 11.
Wow.
Well, somewhere in there. It's our first boy out of 11. So,
Oh, jeez.
and then
Congratulations.
just to remind everybody to do the census. I think we have good results so far in our county. And then also to acknowledge this is the 75th year of New Prague Rotary in the city of New Prague. That's just occurred, Mike, I think this week, right? 75 years, 5 years
Today.
today. So it's been an important service organization for our community for a long time. That's all I got.
Okay. I'd just like to finish by thanking everyone for your patience during this time. I think that this council meeting went very well. And I want everyone to stay safe. And if you have any issues or questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us. So I appreciate it, all you guys are doing for the city. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Come on,
Second
Rick.
by Sean Ryan. So I got a motion by myself, second by Sean Ryan for adjournment. Maggie?
Aye.
Rick, oh, Sean, you second?
Aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Chuck? Aye. That's 5-0. We're out of here. Thank you again, everyone. I think it went pretty well.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you. Good
Are we
night.
doing a virtual bar tour now?
Yeah.
Chuck?
Oh, why don't you
What do you think this has been?
take your camera down to your bar down there. We can have
I'm
a
in my
bar.
bar. I'm in my bar. I'm just waiting.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.